Hey everybody, welcome back to the Woodworking Talk Show. I got a little business to start with. I wanted to remind you that this show is available in podcast format too. Just search for the Woodworking Talk Show on Spotify or wherever else you might listen to podcasts. You're not listening to podcasts anywhere else. And if you like this show, don't forget to check out my other weekly podcast. Chad and Steve have a podcast. On that show, Chad Reynolds and I chat with some of the biggest, most interesting channels on YouTube. And hey, we're coming up on our 50th episode real soon. I hope you'll check it out. I want to thank Keeps for supporting the Woodworking Talk Show and helping to make this kind of a long-form content sustainable. At least I hope. And Cam, I swear it's just a coincidence that Keeps...
I was like, am I the cautionary tale here?
Keeps is the sponsor of this video. How ironic is that?
I'll give you even more irony. I did a Keep spot for a video just a couple weeks ago.
I saw that. How long have you been sporting the hair-free look?
I've been hair-free since I was 21, which is about 18 years ago.
Did you know, speaking of which, that 2 out of 3 guys will experience some sort of male pattern baldness by the time they're 35. The best way to prevent hair loss is to do something about it while you still have some left. Basically, keep what you have. I see. That's the name of the company, Keep. With Keeps, a licensed doctor will review your information online and recommend the right hair loss treatment plan for you. Then your treatment is shipped directly to you every 3 months, directly to you. None of this indirect shipping business. It comes right to your front door. And they keep it affordable by offering generic versions of FDA-approved medications for hair loss. If you are ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/TWTS. Hey, look at that. They've got a custom URL for the Woodworking Talk Show. Or click the link in the description to receive 50% off your first order. That's KEEPS.com/TWTS. Cam Anderson is a former helicopter pilot who has been posting woodworking videos on his channel Oh man, this is not getting off to a good start. I almost called you Blackmail Studio. You don't blackmail people over there, do you?
Not anymore.
You're just done with all of that. Okay. Yeah. So anyways, he's been posting videos on his channel Blacktail Studio since 2018. He quit his job back in March 2020 to become a YouTuber and pursue his passion for woodworking full time. In June of 2020, his channel gained 12 million views and 83,000 subscribers. But okay, here's the really unusual part. In April of 2021, this year, his channel spiked again with 160,000 new subscribers, probably due in part to his video $15,000 wood slab kitchen island - one-man woodworking shop. I think Cam's YouTube channel is so appealing to so many people because it's all about going big. You've got big wood slabs, big epoxy tables, and big money. He is the undisputed king of epoxy tables. Cam, congratulations on all of your success and welcome to the show.
Thank you. And you did your homework. This is impressive.
I don't mess around here. I'm really happy you could join me because, you know, I just had Jason Hibbs of Bourbon Moth on recently, and basically the two of you are the two hottest woodworking channels on YouTube at the moment. And you're both from Portland, Oregon. Do you know Jason? Have you met him? You talked to him?
I've never talked to him, but he's from a little further south.
Oh, okay.
I'm in kind of greater Portland, and I believe he's down south of Portland.
What in 2018 inspired you to start a YouTube channel? I know that you were doing Instagram before the YouTube channel, so is it kind of an offshoot of that?
Yeah, it was Instagram. I'm not, I guess I can't say that now, but traditionally I wasn't a social media person. I didn't really know much about it. Did Instagram to kind of help my little side hustle business, and it took off way more than I ever would have expected. It did pretty well, and I didn't know what the benefit of Instagram could be, and it turned out to generate a little business and that type of thing. And I told my wife, like, I think I would try to start a YouTube channel. And she's like, good. And I'm like, she's like, what are you hoping to get? And I'm like, I don't know. And so I didn't really have any designs on, I never thought it would be my job. I mean, people say never, actually never. And so that was the furthest thing. I thought maybe a customer here or there, just, see what happens.
So were you already had your woodworking business at that point though, and you were actually making pieces for clients?
Yeah, that was, wasn't as busy as I am now. I was still flying, so I kind of, I was busy time-wise, but I didn't have that many orders, but I had enough to make videos on. And so then I just started making videos on what I was making for customers.
Well, if anybody hasn't seen Cam's work, you definitely ought to check it out. It's on the video version of this. You'll see images of it, but definitely go to his website over at Blacktail Studio, because your, I guess, shop page is also a gallery. I mean, it's just stunning work. It's beautiful work on there, and you see examples of everything that you've been making. How long have you been woodworking? When did you first start woodworking?
When I first started doing it for business, I had to kind of pad my numbers and tell people like, oh yeah, I've done this, my whole life. But really seriously, I think around 2016, we moved into a house with a really big garage. And I had done light woodworking, but that was the point when I was like, well, I got to, fill the garage with something and, get a hobby, because my pilot schedule allowed me to have a lot of time off. So really, that's how long I've been woodworking. And I've done, small projects and construction stuff before that, but we'll say 2015 or 16.
Yeah, I saw that your former garage, 5-car garage. I think it's a 5-car garage. Is that right? Or 6-car. It was huge.
It was 6-car. It was built by an auto mechanic.
I was going to say,
he had lifts in there before, and so when we moved in, I was pretty lucky, especially Portland. You don't see garages like that very often.
Right, and you were sharing the space with your wife too. What kind of work does she do?
She runs her family's company. They have, where are you located at?
I'm in San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay, you wouldn't know, but Pacific Northwest and Hawaii, they have like 40 furniture and mattress stores.
Oh, wow.
So she runs all that.
Nice. And then in that same, I thought it was kind of funny because you did a shop tour, and in that same, the same shop tour video, you're like, well, this is my shop tour, but also I'm moving my shop. So I was like, well, yeah. Here we go again. And so you just moved into, well, I guess it looked like it was October of last year. You moved into a brand new shop, 1,300 square feet. What's that like?
Yeah, which ironically is about the same size as our old garage. So it's not that big of an improvement, except I don't share it with my wife's car. So it is really nice though to have that space.
Is it enough space for you?
No. I had a contractor out this morning. We're talking expansion.
Are you really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's.
I made it too small.
Yeah.
You should be a cautionary tale for people. I put a huge table saw on a huge island, and now I can't It's fine if I don't have any projects, but the moment I put a 10-foot table in there, you can't move, you can't do anything.
Right, right. And you just recently upgraded your table saw too. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you're getting a lot of. You don't do any CNC work, do you? Or do you have a CNC?
No, I'm not smart enough for that. So I don't. I guess I don't like to say never on anything, but I don't have any designs to do it just because I'd have to learn how to use it then.
Yeah. Do people think you were crazy when you quit your day job flying a helicopter to start a woodworking business?
People that didn't know me for sure, I'd got comments on that video, telling me how stupid I was. But surprisingly, the people that knew me was like, "Oh yeah, this is overdue." And I'm like I thought all the people I worked with, I thought they'd be shocked, and they're like, "Oh no, we knew this was coming." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
And do you still sell to clients? Is that a portion of your business is actual physical?
Yeah, I keep saying I'm going to stop, and then I keep getting drawn back in. And right now, I think it might have been. I've been talking to Mike from, I don't know if you know him, Industrial Maker.
Sure.
I can't remember if it was him, but he was talking about how that kind of gives my woodworking page some validity to be able to, part of people that watch me want to know how to do it maybe on a smaller scale or just starting out. And if I don't take any clients, then how am I really an expert at it? So I kind of like that train of thought, although it's a lot of work to manage everything plus the clients.
Right, right. Do you see your channel as more of a how-to channel, or do you think it's more of a kind of a sit back and watch you build cool things channel?
I would have said until 3 months ago that it was definitely a how-to channel, and now I think it is more of a how it's made.
Right.
Someone that turns in to watch how battleships are made. They're not planning on building a battleship. They just want to see it come together and cool.
Right.
So I think now I have more of those viewers than people that actually want to do it themselves.
Yeah, it seems to be like you lean in on the epoxy tables, big epoxy tables, and it seems to be those seem to be the videos that perform really well. Is like the bigger the better.
I know. I keep trying to make these like little sculpted end tables, and they do okay, but then it's all about size. People want to see the bigger, which would have been really nice if I could have found a niche making little things. People like the big tables.
Then you wouldn't have to expand your shop, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
I have 2 orders for 2022 of 16-foot tables that I physically can't build in my shop. So
Wow.
I got to do something.
How are you going to do that? You're just going to have to wait until you expand the shop.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't know if the shop expansion is kind of going slow or hard to get that going. I might have to call in some favors and use somebody else's space.
Yeah. Does the client work kind of determine what your YouTube videos are going to be, or do you come up and do YouTube videos kind of just based on what you want to do sometimes?
I'll do some filler ones of what I want to do, but mostly the client's tables, which I keep feeling that I've exhausted the epoxy table video. Like, oh no, I've done this video, made this video so many times, no one's going to watch this one, and then it'll do well, and so try one more. And I think it's kind of like people talk about me being like a Bob Ross type of like narration. I thought about it, and I guess he was, painting another forest scene, over and over again, and people kept watching that. So I'll keep making videos on the client's projects, and then try to pepper in some more, different things to keep people interested that have seen enough of those.
So I did a little research here on Google Trends. Okay, because I know epoxy table is just like you hit it at peak trend, I think. And
Sure.
So I was doing a search for river table, epoxy table, and resin table, and that trend actually started in June of 2018. Your first epoxy table was July in 2018. So you were like perfectly timed.
That's good. Perfect.
For the epoxy trend. That was pretty cool. And so all of those peaked in May of 2020. Everybody was watching this kind of stuff during the pandemic. And then the other trend that you seem to have found that works really well are live edge tables. And that live edge table, that peaked in January of this year. So I guess a question here is, do you plan on keeping up with woodworking trends like that when they come, and kind of just staying on top of what people are really responding to?
Yeah, kind of, but I don't think it'll probably be, I have to like something to make it.
Yeah.
There's like, I finally started, I won't make a hot pink epoxy table or the bright blue ones. Like, I don't like them.
Come on, you got to make a hot pink epoxy table.
I know, maybe I will. But what I found on YouTube is people kind of respond to, authentic, what's the word I'm looking for? Authenticity, is that a word?
Authenticity,
that's the one. People respond to that, and so if I try to fake something, it doesn't come across very well. So yes, I'm all in on if there is a new trend or something, if it's in my style, because I don't think I can make something that's not my style look good. Just trying to fake it. So whatever comes along, I'm open to it, but I won't, like the Tens Gritty thing, the suspension tables. Mm-hmm. They're not my thing, so I'm not gonna try to jump on that one, because I know that one has been popular with some of the YouTubers out there.
Do you think if you were around in 2015, you'd have done pallet wood furniture?
That's how I started.
Did you really?
Well, okay, that's how I wanted to start. I had when I first started this woodworking, we got the new house. I can't remember. I was at some shop, and the guy he made these like pallet wood geometric kind of design tables, and he told me he made like $55,000 a year before just selling those, and I'm like, all in. Like, I want that. I want extra income. So I tried making a few of those, and I sold like one. They didn't work at all for me. So to answer your question, absolutely.
I think those dollar amounts kind of ring true, especially in titles of videos. I notice if you put the dollar amounts in the videos, it's very compelling. You know, you're like,
I have a video out in 3 hours with the dollar amount in the video, and there's another thing that I kind of thought I'd exhausted. Like, you know, I don't want to overuse it so people get numb to it.
right.
But they do seem to respond pretty well to it. So
Yeah, I think that's across the board on YouTube. It's just kind of, it's like a form of just like flexing, and people love to see those huge dollar amounts. Like, I just bought this new Ferrari, and here's how much I did.
And that's kind of why I haven't done it more, because I don't like. I mean, if people make more expensive, nicer stuff than me out there, and so I don't want it to seem like a flex, but I think it is interpreted that way, and I guess whatever, you know, drives the views.
It works. It definitely. What is it about epoxy that intrigues you? What is it that just drew you to this?
I liked being able to use different wood. You know, I'm not super drawn to the straight down the middle, you know, river, you know, quote unquote table. I like the more cracks and character, you know, pieces that I could say I like them because you get to reuse wood that's going to be, you know, chopped up, but that's not really the reason. I just think it looks cool. I think I like, you know, being able to use, you know, pieces. You get so much color and figure and grain in these pieces with all the rot and cracks and things like that, that it's just a different look that you don't see much. And I do think that it's, you know, it's going to exhaust itself eventually. It'll be a trend just like anything else. And but for now, yeah, it's just something different. You know, people have made enough breadboard end tables that I could never improve on that. So maybe I can, you know, come up with something unique using this.
Yeah, I think that the whole farmhouse kitsch look is definitely dying out. I think Joanna Gaines has just burned that to the ground.
Yeah, and it's, you know, people ask me, those like, oh, what are you going to do when these tables are, you know, they're a fad and they're gone, you know, what are you going to do then? I'm like, I'll make something else.
Right.
You know, what do you think I'm going to do? This is what people do when fads change.
Yeah, and you've got, I mean, you're not doing strictly epoxy tables. I mean, you know, I think people probably think of you as the epoxy table guy, but there's a lot, and just the live edge furniture alone, I think probably live edge furniture has more staying power than epoxy.
I end up being, I do like live edge. That video coming out today is a live edge desk, but I'm more drawn to like the slab, either book match or single slab with straight edge. I just feel like that's a little more timeless. You know, it's just the wood. You know, you're not really doing anything to it other than making the natural wood look as cool as you can. So that's like our personal dining table I built was just a big book match black walnut slabs.
There's just something so appealing about a piece of furniture that is just kind of close to the source, close to the tree that it came from, and it has substance to it. You can feel it, you know.
Yeah, and I'm not artistic enough to do spiral copper inlays and, you know, all those things like some of those amazing guys are able to do. So I just try to let the wood speak for itself.
Well, you say you're not artistic enough, but I've seen some beautiful, beautiful pieces. And speaking of spiral, you've got like an end table or a small table on your site that is a spiral like column on it. Just it's stunning, really. It's beautiful.
Well, thanks. Thank you.
Yeah. How much time goes into making a video for you, from the time that you have to conceive it to the time you have to design the project, get the materials, all of that, to you press the publish button and start reading comments?
It depends on the project, because a lot of it is, you know, slowed down with clients and, you know, searching for the wood. So I probably spend, you know, if it's say a, you know, 9 foot long epoxy and walnut table, 6 weeks start to finish, if I'm really only working on that one. And then it generally takes me about twice as long to film a project and build it as it does just to build it.
Yeah.
So, you know, an extra probably 40 hours of work in the filming, and then another 10 hours or so of editing and all that. So I probably didn't answer your question. Was that 6 weeks plus, you know,
it's a hard
or a
one
bunch of hours?
Yeah. Are you a complete one-man show as far as your business goes?
Yeah, for now. I keep talking about hiring a content person, but right now I'm the only one out there.
What would that person do?
Well, I'd like to get someone that could do all the video stuff, film everything, edit everything, that, full-time employee that was out there. If that person had a desire to do woodwork, it'd be cool to, be able to use them in the shop a little bit too. But I think the content, get them. I hardly ever post on Instagram anymore because filming everything with my new camera, I don't have material unless I pull it directly from the, that footage. So it'd be nice to have someone that was on a schedule doing all that, getting the content out there, editing it better than I could edit, all those things.
Yeah, I keep thinking I want somebody who could just manage social media, because I always fear. I was talking to Ben, Homemade Modern, last week, and he kind of mentioned the same thing. It always feels like he's missing out on all this stuff, and there's all these things to do, and you see everybody else just killing it on social media, and I'm like, I think the last time I posted something on Instagram is like 3 weeks ago or something, and I think I should really post something, and then it feels forced. And it's like,
I know it's yeah, I still think Instagram it's slowed down a lot. I don't know if were you ever real into Instagram?
Not really, no. So I was never huge on it, and now I just kind of post updates on projects and things. I don't really.
Well, for those that don't know or those that do know, it was maybe 2 years ago. Instagram was so easy. I would never have the following that I have on Instagram if I came in now, and tried to build it up, because I get, I was getting, 1,000 followers, sometimes a day, at least 6, 7, 8,000 a month, and now I'm at like 1,000 every 2 months or something. And Instagram basically throttled how they're doing it, and it makes sense. They don't want everyone to have 1 million subscribers or 1 million followers, because then it wouldn't mean anything. So it was nice coming in when I did, because so many of us just like blew up, and now we look like we're big, but we're really not even as good as these pages now with 15,000.
Do you try to keep up with like I don't want to say what sort of trends on YouTube? Do you want to try to manage like social posts, the community tab on there, and stories and shorts? I know she posted one short. Is that something you think you're going to pursue or not?
Yeah, probably. I have just a sneaking suspicion that YouTube, and there's nothing to back this up for the record, that YouTube rewards people that maximize, that use all the platforms that they want you to use, because, they're trying to push them. So let's reward the people that use the things like the shorts or the community tab. So also my platform's so much bigger on YouTube now than it is on Instagram. So I feel like I'm missing out on a lot of people if I don't post stuff on there.
Did your success on YouTube come as just a complete surprise to you? Like, there's like a year, basically the past year, your channel you really are, while all other channels in woodworking have kind of, leveled off after the pandemic kind of rushed to YouTube, yours just keeps rising. It's incredible.
It's weird. And, when it took off, it was actually my second epoxy table video. My first one got like 50,000 views, which is great. But that's not crazy. And then my next one ended up at like 5 million, and that was where I went from 400 subscribers to 20,000 or something. And so, but yeah, no, I never ever thought any of this was coming, and now it's just a matter of working, really hard and staying on it, and trying to, keep it going.
I noticed that your most popular video is the Fire Epoxy Table Woodworking Projects Resin Art video.
I love that you read the whole title.
I think it's a great title. But that seems to be real appealing to people too. So I think you're hitting on these things that have such great visuals. I mean, the burning wood is so cool to watch, and then just to watch wood just get that. What, alligatoring, is that what it's called? Or crocodile skin, or where the wood burns and it.
Yeah, no, it's I never thought that one would take off like it did. I thought it would be kind of interesting, and it's one of these lessons. My wife, she doesn't get a lot of stuff that I do, and so she'll I told her I want to try this, and she's like, okay, like, you think people want to see that? Like, I don't know.
You're doing what to wood? You're burning it, right?
Yeah, and I didn't create that epoxy over burnt wood. I saw like a Reddit post where someone did a little sample of it, and I go, I want to try that on a table. Like, it looked really cool in that Reddit post that I saw. So then I knocked off that guy's idea and did it on a table, and yeah, got a lot of views anyway.
It's kind of a great use of epoxy over that, because when you're just burning wood, you've got to have some way of sealing it, because otherwise you're just getting that black soot everywhere. I did one project with that technique, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, and it's a lot more challenging, I thought, than it looks. I thought I would just burn wood, but there's a real fine line there of how much to burn it and how much
warps, twists, and it crumbles.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you can't just let it just sit there and smolder all day, or you're just going to be left with a pile of burned ash. And it won't.
Pretty much, yeah.
But I guess the Soshugi-ban, which is kind of what that's based on, is actually a preservative technique used in Japan, I suppose, at least at one time, for outsides of buildings. It would actually prevent, I guess, weathering.
Yeah, and it helps from insects. And
Right.
if fun fact, if you get the people who like to, and probably get someone in your comments here that will tell you. Apparently, and I've only noticed because people blast me on my video saying that I'm saying it wrong. It's yakasugi is the real Japanese word, and the Western world will mispronounce it shosugi-ban. So there's basically no Google searches for yakasugi or yakasuki, whatever it is. But now everybody knows it as this new version, or the shosugi-ban.
We can just call it burnt wood.
Yeah, I had somebody on that video. They said, "Oh, real nice. You're ripping off Evan and Caitlin, I see."
No.
And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
And so I I wanted to see what they're talking about, so I Googled it. And even this is a big YouTube page, and they even said, they're like, "Oh, we're doing the ancient Japanese art of shosugi-ban," and this person thought that they invented it.
Right.
So
It's kind of funny though, but I've gotten comments like that over the years. Was when somebody sees a technique and you're the second person they've seen do it, they assume that the first person was the very first person to do this thing. You're like, no,
definitely.
this has probably been around a lot longer than YouTube.
I get people that try to defend me, saying, like, someone will make a black epoxy and walnut table, and they're like, "Oh, like, nice Blacktail Studio," and I'm like, I didn't invent that. Like, I'm not the first person to do that.
Right. Well, speaking of comments, it seems like the comments kind of eat at you a little bit on your channel. I noticed at the ends of your videos, you've got like troll comment, troll of the week or something on there. You highlight the negative comment.
No, that's the opposite of eating at me.
Yeah.
No, the troll ones, I wouldn't post one that really ate at me, which every now and again someone can. But no, the troll ones I just post because they're so preposterous that I think it's funny to show everybody else.
And then other people will want to be in that position, because it used to be, there's a difference, and I don't think a lot of people understand, there's a difference between a troll comment and just a mean comment. I mean, at least it used to be a troll was intentionally provocative just to kind of get a knee-jerk reaction, intentionally hoping that somebody's going to react and respond to that.
Yeah.
Which is a lot. I think a lot of people just say trolls now when it's just, they mean somebody was just being mean to them.
And mine might be both of that. I think a lot of the people are just genuinely, being mean or upset with me for whatever reason.
Well, yeah, that comes with the chorus. Yeah.
Sure. But no, those ones, they mean like less than nothing. They actually, when I'm going through, if I have a long streak of no comments, like nothing I can work with, and I'll tell my wife, I'm like, "There's no trolls this week," and she's like, "What? I'm sorry." So like, this is something that I post a lot more of them on Instagram than I do at the end of my YouTube videos.
I saw that. You've got like stories with hundreds of them. Yeah.
I have dozens of people that message me, tell me they're like, "I don't really do woodworking, but I like your troll comments."
Right. You think that people want to are trying to craft those now because it's become like a thing? They want to be tried.
I do, and I feel like, at least in my heart, I feel like I can sense which the ones those are, and I don't post those ones or I don't respond to those, because I think you can genuinely feel when someone is like genuinely outraged by something versus when someone is just gonna like, "Oh, I'm gonna say something about this guy being bald and whatever," like that's just them trying to maybe make the troll comments or do whatever. But it's when someone says something that's just preposterously wrong that I feel like that hate comes from the heart.
Yeah. I think that I actually kind of enjoy the comments where somebody just says something just so bizarre, and it feels like they're intentionally trolling, like they're really wanting that response, because those could be. But I kind of sometimes I troll my own audience though too. I just did a short And I know this was going to happen because when I do the shorts, I'm like, how am I going to generate good engagement with this? Well, one of the best ways to generate engagement is to have some sort of level of controversy to any video, really. YouTube loves that kind of interaction. So I have like a lot of Halloween projects. I have a lot of horror movie stuff in my shop. And so one of them was it's a pentagram that I made for Halloween a few years ago. And I know whenever that's in the background, I get comments on it. So on my latest video, I made sure I set up the camera so I could get that. And like half of the comments are like, wow, are you a Satanist? And I'm like, yeah, wow. You're possessed now. That's it.
Yes, that's amazing that people find a way to get outraged by that.
It's funny. And well, you know what I did one year is I made a Ouija board for Halloween. And so I got comments from people because I left it in the back of my shop when I was done using it. I mean, I don't believe in this stuff. So it was just sitting there. And I would get comments on videos about people like, oh, they're like, honestly believe in ghosts, I guess. And so they're like, no, I'm unsubscribing. And so then I made a video where in the background, I just kept like flipping it in different directions. And I didn't say anything about it. I just let it be there.
I think people like those little Easter eggs, though. Yeah. It gets them noticed. Like every now and again, if I'm screen recording like an internet search I'm doing, I'll leave a tab open with something else, just something that people can be like, wait, what was he searching for on the other tab?
Right. All right. Yeah, that's pretty funny to do.
I had one that it was an actual search, but I just decided to it's just like a half a second that you would have had to see it.
Right.
And I was asking my wife about the day before it, and I was searching, do people eat tadpoles? Because I'm like, never heard of that, but people eat everything. And so I think only one person saw it though.
There was kind of a prank that would go around a few years ago where you would make a video going into like a Walmart where you would just buy like 3 or 4 things and then get the reaction of like the checker there. You would buy like a chain, a hatchet, a burlap bag.
Yeah, things. Perfect. That's perfect.
That's pretty funny. What is it about your videos that people like to watch? What's drawing people to your channel?
I think anymore. We mentioned, is it a how-to or is it just to watch it come alive? I think a lot of people like watch them just to fall asleep. I think it's just background noise to people. I think, and you probably know more about this than I do, but YouTube isn't like when you started, where it was you log into your desktop and you wait, with your limited bandwidth and all that. Is now people put it on their TV. It's almost like a television show replacement. So I don't know. I think people say they like that some people say they like that I'm honest and humble, but then other people talk about they've never seen a guy with such a big ego. So I don't know what to, what to make of that. I try to be honest. I try not to, lie to people. I try not to hide things. If I mess something up, people seem to respond well to just saying like, yeah, screwed this up and here's how I'm going to try to fix it. So I think people like that. And then, like you said, they like watching, big tables get made.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any idea? Do you look at your analytics very often, or is that something? Are you a numbers guy?
Oh yeah, I'm all in on that.
Really?
Yeah.
Does it drive you crazy when you look at the, how the most recent video is doing, like the number 1, 2? This is ranked 3rd. Yeah. This is like 10 out of 10, and you're just kind of
Yeah. No, I think it was Brad from Fix This Build That. I saw a couple years ago he'd posted something about his SEO background, I think he said, or maybe this, and I'm like, oh well, I don't know anything about that, so I could never be like him. Yeah. And then as you start getting into it and you start looking at it, I think it's really interesting now. I saw that you do the TubeBuddy thing, and I just started doing the thumbnail testing.
It's pretty cool.
So it is. It's really neat. I think it's something that's really cool. And the more I do this, the more I realize it's not. The good ones aren't an accident. Whereas before, when I started, I thought it was just like, oh, if the algorithm likes me, they like me. And now my bad videos are bad for a reason, and my good videos are good for a reason. And
you kind of become a detective, and you can kind of figure it out. And TubeBuddy is interesting to do the A/B testing on the thumbnail. Do you have a lot of surprises on those tests?
Yeah, I do.
What kind of thumbnail do you think performs better than others?
So my thumbnails are like the opposite of what every blog and YouTube video tells you you're supposed to have in a thumbnail. I feel like you're like the master of the standard YouTube thumbnail with like the big face and the question mark and the, something like that. But mine invariably do better with no text, no face. Like I can be in it, but not like up close, and then not a finished table. So like a raw wood slab. So I just did a video I had. It has like 6 million views, and it got most of the views with big text on it and a finished product of the table. I tested that against one of me mid-finishing it, so it's like half finished, and the finishing one was like 30% better. And then I tested that one against just a picture of the raw slab, and that one lost by like 40% to that one. So it's crazy.
It is really interesting because really anymore videos on YouTube live and die on the thumbnail. It all comes down to the thumbnail because people are just scrolling through so many videos that they don't have time to look at the title or any of that. And even YouTube reads the thumbnail and what's in it and kind of ranks you accordingly. But I'm always surprised by, that's the one thing though you pointed out that I've noticed is that putting a finished product on a thumbnail is not a good idea. And I know that from my own viewing experience that if I'm looking through and I see a finished product, I just kind of like, well, it's Instagram. I don't need to watch the video now. I've just seen it.
And it was opposite of what I would have thought, but it makes sense, in hindsight now. And so I've almost pulled all of those off. I've still kind of go through and test some of them, but it's amazing what a beautiful studio shot and crafted keyword text and all that. It's not as good as just having like a screen grab of me hauling a slab out of my truck.
Yeah, and that's what I've been doing for the past year or so is just grabbing a screenshot from somewhere in the video. And if it's like slightly blurry or out of focus, those really work well. It's just like, if people have to kind of squint their eyes to figure out what's going on, it's just a crazy game. YouTube is kind of a game, isn't it?
It is, and it's it's that whole that old cliche line about if you don't have to be faster than the bear, you have to be faster than the person next to you.
Right.
Like, yeah, you're not going to figure YouTube out, but as long as you can just kind of be just a little bit better than the next guy, and down to a 5% better thumbnail than your previous one.
Do you think that YouTube is just mostly a competitive landscape, just competing for eyeballs?
What do you mean by that?
As far as you competing with other woodworking channels, like, okay, this is really a competition. It can be a friendly competition, but still, it's a competition.
I don't know. I don't know if there's a finite number of our viewers, like, or maybe a bunch of good videos would bring more people back to YouTube because they don't have to search for good content.
Right.
Maybe if everybody was doing really good, maybe if I could be one of the 20 best channels and all 20 of us are bringing in people dropping cable and doing that just to watch these YouTube channels, that could be good for us.
Do you think that your channel gets a lot of repeat viewers? Do you think subscribers watch your channel a lot, or do you get mostly from non-subscribers?
That's one of the analytics I'm not sure. I guess I don't know what to compare it to because it'll tell you percentage watch from subscribers versus not. So I don't know. I read something that the more subscribers you get, the less YouTube will show it to those people because people don't want to see the same content that they watch all the time.
Interesting.
So subscribers don't necessarily really help you a lot.
Yeah, I was having this conversation last week on my other podcast about the kind of the futility of subscribers and what does it really mean when I think YouTube now just places that as one element. That's just one data point basically in how to recommend a channel because they're going to, I don't have to subscribe to your channel, even though I do. I don't have to subscribe to Blacktail Studio to get more Blacktail Studio videos if I happen to watch one Blacktail Studio. YouTube's pretty smart. They're like, oh, okay, this guy watched that. And if you have the subscribe click, then they're like, okay, well, that's, I think, kind of like a like button.
Yeah. Like, okay, we'll show you a few more, but not all of them.
Yeah. It's strange. And one thing I've noticed is that usually I lose subscribers when I post videos. right off the bat, because I think that's when it's fresh in people's mind. They're like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. I haven't watched one of his videos in 3 years. I better unsubscribe.
Yeah, I just worked really hard on my last video I put out, and I lost subscribers for like the first week it was out. Now it's finally like net positive, but I was like, really, like I offended these people. But I guess if you get a big enough sample size, then
Well, I think we tend to think of our subscribers as like people who are just always watching our videos and they know everything, and it's not quite the case.
Yeah, no, I genuinely think that subscribers, it's a way for us to keep score, but I'm all in on it. I do the hard sell, like I try to get as many as I can. That said, the net benefit to me, I don't know what it is, other than being able to, when I pitch a brand, to say, hey, I have 800,000 subscribers, so maybe they'll take me a little bit more seriously off the bat.
Sure, yeah. I think we live in the age of social validation through followers. Yeah,
it's amazing how much better a woodworker people think you are when you put a bunch of followers next to your name.
It's crazy. I know. Yeah. I don't think I would have ever, if I'd started woodworking a few years ago, a woodworking channel, I would never have gotten this far. I was just lucky because I got in early, because I didn't have any previous experience or anything.
I think it's I know that I got lucky. Pandemic, like you mentioned, is good for a lot of us. I know that getting in at the epoxy boom was good for me, but I don't think your success is an accident. I think they say in business, every business has the same chance of getting lucky. It's what you do with that luck. Maybe you get that one big client, and is that it? Does your business go under after that, or can you use that to go to the next step? So I think it's a matter of using what luck you get.
Yeah, and being aware of, I think that it's really smart of you to look at your analytics and take that kind of seriously, because it's important to know what people are responding to. And I mean, you can't, I guess, go all in on that, but you got to use that as one bit of information. If you're trying to run a business, you got to give, customers what they want to see.
And people, are you a comments guy? Do you read your comments?
Oh yeah. I read comments. I respond to comments. I hide people a lot. That's one of my favorite functions. It's better than deleting them, because then they can just keep commenting, but nobody sees the comment. It's like they're just put in this little bubble. It's really fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that if someone does want to start a YouTube page, I think the comments are, they can be frustrating if you got thin skin, but if you got a thicker skin, it's like the best focus group you can get. Like, most people aren't mean. Like, they're just genuinely telling you stuff that's good to hear, and sometimes it's hard to hear, until people tell you, like, my audio was really bad on a video a couple weeks ago, and I wouldn't have known that if I didn't have all these people that tell me, how bad my audio was. So I think it's good. Or people tell me, this project, if you can tell if they say, this project probably wasn't for me, but, cool effort. That's the nicest way of someone saying, this thing sucks. Like, don't make this.
It's very passive aggressive.
Yeah, but they're being genuine. Whereas if someone just comes out and says, epoxy is poison, you're the devil, one of those things, you could probably leave that comment. But when people give you like a trying to be nice but say they don't like it, maybe work on something else.
Right. Yeah, I think with a lot of YouTube channels, you can kind of get a feel for the channel by reading the comments, because the comments are really a direct reflection of the host of that channel. And you can tell channels where the person running the channel doesn't read comments, because the comments just go crazy and it's just the wild west of comments.
It's funny. I've never read other people's comments. Like, I've never deep dived. So maybe I'll dive into yours and see how they are.
Yeah, I mean, they're generally nice, because I've crafted that for a long time to just kind of like, I don't, if somebody leaves, I have this hair trigger. Like, if somebody says something that I think is just a little bit snotty, I just hide them. I don't bother responding or anything. And I love that feature of YouTube, that you could just hide a user and they don't know it. They think that they still see their comment. Nobody else on YouTube sees their comment.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and from then on, whenever they leave a comment, they can bang away at their keyboard all they want. I don't see it. Nobody sees it. It's just like putting a little cage over them.
little aquarium for the little troll aquarium.
Yeah. And you mentioned epoxy as being, it is sort of a controversial thing among woodworking. I'm not really sure why that is. It seems like every so often there seems to be some sort of controversy in woodworking, and people, we seem to be in the age of woodworking gatekeepers, people who have to like try to determine what is real woodworking and what isn't. We've gone through it with pallets, we've gone through it with pocket holes and CNC machines and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's just because epoxy might be relatively new and it's just not pure.
Yeah, no, I think I get that it's not for everybody, and I told you, I think, before we started recording that I watched your first one with Jason from Bourbon Moth, and I felt like he was a good example of what I hear a lot, but at the same time, so he said about the mean comments he gets in videos, he's like, I don't get it, if all people have to do is not click on my video and watch it, then he was pretty vehemently against the epoxy stuff, and so I was wondering, like, why can't people just not watch it, if it's not for them? And so, I don't get why people get upset over a style they don't like, because I think what it really comes down to is that they're woodworkers, they don't like it, and their feed gets inundated with it, so they can't avoid it, so they kind of get exhausted by it, and I feel for that, but it's just another fad.
But all of that stuff could be avoided based on your clicks, just like we were talking about YouTube. YouTube's going to serve you up what you want to see. If you keep getting epoxy videos in your feed, it's because you're watching epoxy videos.
I don't know. I in their defense, I do think that that line gets muddied with woodworking and the epoxy. So
yeah,
I don't think there's a epoxy mute button that someone can hit on YouTube. So
no, probably not. You're right. Yeah. You're right. Yeah.
So I mean, I get it. I get it's not for everybody, but if someone doesn't like, Japanese joinery or something, you don't see an outrage against that. Yeah. I get that epoxy is much easier than Japanese joinery, and but no, it's its own thing, and it'll run its course just like everything. And it's interesting talking to you because you've been through a lot of this, especially in the forefront of the social media, since you could be on woodworking social media.
Yeah. And one of the things Jason brought up was the environmental impact of epoxy. Is there any studies done on that? Do you have any take on that as far as
like the disposal of the tables or the health risks, or which?
Well, I would imagine what he was talking about was that people just dumping them in landfills eventually, and the wood surrounding it will decompose fine, but the epoxy might just be there forever.
Yeah, I mean it's plastic. I think I think the 5,000 people in the United States making epoxy tables right now probably make less than IKEA makes in a week, particle board and glue.
That's a good point. There's a lot of glue in that stuff, right?
Yeah, so if you really want to be outraged, I maybe start with the particle board, front, and work backwards from there, because I think there's a lot more particle board than epoxy tables. So, I get it. It's plastic. We got a lot of plastic. We got too much plastic. It's at least in big chunks, and hopefully won't end up shredded in the, the ocean.
Right. You just have to make it extra beautiful, so nobody's going to want to throw away that epoxy table.
Well, and that's another thing. Is like I get they're going to be off trend, but most things don't get, most solid wood tables don't end in a dumpster, for a long time anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they're going to be. Someone could paint it, Like, I think if you're going to have a big, heavy, solid table that's out of trend, people, repaint old stuff all the time. If you really hated it, and they were free, if someone was just giving it away, I imagine they're going to be repurposed for, or maybe some hipster will do his floors with epoxy tables eventually, or something like that.
It's kind of like, it reminds me of those, remember the trend not too long ago was the distressed furniture. Everybody was buying old furniture, painting it, and then intentionally distressing it.
Sure. Yep.
Do you think, what's the biggest, if you had to pick one thing, what would be the biggest mistake people make if they get into pouring epoxy and making something out of epoxy?
There's so many. I'll do a shameless plug for my last video, because this is kind of, I do these in-person video consultations, and at the end, people that were trying to build their own table would say, okay, what can totally screw me up? Like, what can ruin my project? And I'd have to rattle off the things off the top of my head. So I finally made a video, and there was 14 things that was like, if you do these, you won't ruin your table. There's more tips and tricks to make it better, but it's things, pouring too thick, using the wrong epoxy, not sealing the wood because you can stain it with the dye. They'll pour it and leave raw wood on top, so that way when it's curing, that wood is warping and twisting, because it's not equal, or it's not finished the same on top and on bottom. So there is a video with everything in there, but it's 22 minutes long. You don't want me to talk for 22 minutes about that.
What would you tell somebody who is thinking about getting into epoxy and what they should know that they're getting themselves into? Because I think a lot of people probably see it on maybe Pinterest, and they go and they buy some epoxy, they start pouring it without a whole lot of thought going into it.
First, they can do it. Second, it's harder than you think. So it's...
Is it expensive?
Yeah, super expensive.
Is it?
Yeah. So you can totally do it, but it's not just pouring, pull it out, put finish on it. I had a consultation with a woman that was explaining how it was like uneven thickness and this and that, and I'm like, well, like, if you get it, when you get it surfaced, it'll be, and she's like, get it what? Like, and so, some people are more aware of what goes into it and than others. So it is, I don't want to get into is it woodworking or not, but there are woodworking steps that need to be done to, complete this table, and people just need to be aware of that.
Right. Yeah. And there's usually wood involved in an epoxy project. I don't know if I've ever seen just a pure epoxy table.
I'm working on one.
Are you?
I did a couple that were just giant chunks of epoxy with different colors like flowing into each other, just for all the people that are tired of epoxy tables.
There's one. Just give me epoxy. Epoxy legs, epoxy chairs. Give me an example of, say, a dining table. If you were going to do a full pour, say what, a dining table, maybe an inch and a half thick. How much would something like that cost to just the epoxy?
Just the epoxy. Yeah. Usually for a dining table, I'd be around like 2 inches or maybe even 2.5 inches. I'd say $400 to $1,200 of epoxy.
Wow, that's a lot. But I guess if you were going to use, say, walnut or something, you could be getting into some pretty pricey the same way, really. Probably not, maybe not quite as much, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's the wood, at least that I use is pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Epoxy expensive, although now I'm fortunate enough to get sponsored, so I get the epoxy for free at least, which makes it a lot easier to do these solid epoxy tables.
You can't beat that.
Yeah.
I got a couple of. I just wanted to ask you this. When I found out you were a helicopter pilot, I've had a couple of helicopter questions that I've always thought about, and now I have somebody I can just go to the source and ask you. And these may be totally common questions that everybody asks, but I've never asked somebody.
Hold on, let me see if I can guess.
Okay, good. Let's do that.
If the engine stops, does it just fall like a rock?
There you go. That's question number one. Yep. Yeah.
Well, it's going to shock you, but I've had this question before.
I'm so basic.
Yeah. So no, I can explain that one pretty well. So if the engine stops, it's not like a fixed drive gear to the shaft. So if the engine stops, it doesn't stop the blades. It's a freewheeling unit. So the engine essentially disengages from the propeller, and now think of it like those little maple seeds that twirl down. The air coming up spins the blades, and you go down, and you got to kind of manage your energy, your speed of the rotor, and then you get down, you flare it out, and then you set it down.
Is that something you practice while you're learning to fly a helicopter?
Yeah, you do it. You do it a million times, and I've never had a real engine failure, but that's something that you practice it over and over and over and over. I mean, I've done thousands of them. Did
you ever just try to scare somebody and turn off the engine while they're in the passenger or something and just say, "Ha"?
All the time. Yeah, I did that. When I was one of my first dates with my wife.
Oh no.
In 2007. I took her for a helicopter ride because I'm like, oh, I'll totally impress this girl. And so took her up, and we were in the Willamette Valley in Portland, so we have mountains and we have rivers and we have all this pretty stuff. So I flew up to the mountain, and I landed on 4,000 feet or something up there, and she's just kind of looking around. She's like, but most people are like, from the time you take off, eyes this big, and she's just kind of politely, oh, nice. And I was like, gosh, okay. So I go down to the river, and I'm carving down the river, doing that, and she's again just politely looking. I'm like, God, this girl doesn't get impressed by anything. And so we're coming back to the airport, and I just like killed the engine, and you drop like a roller coaster.
Oh man!
And I like ran it down to the ground with under no power, and then at the end you roll the engine back on. So then I like flare it out and roll the engine on, and she's like, "That was awesome. What was that?" So I'm like, "Finally."
Wow! Oh my God! Well, there's a first date right there, huh?
Yeah.
What?
Good one.
Okay. Do you want to guess what my second question is?
Second question. No, I don't know.
Okay. Second question is, why, when I see helicopters in movies, why does everybody duck down? Are those blades so low that they will just chop your head off? And if so, has that ever happened? And second, isn't that just a design flaw? Shouldn't they just make them up a little higher?
Good question. So some helicopters, yes. Generally, the bigger helicopters are up taller, but there was one that down in the Gulf when I used to fly, there was an S-76, and it's a big helicopter. It's like 12 passenger, and it was like this level, like at the front of the helicopter.
So it's just right at your eyes.
Yeah, no, it really would. Most of the ones I've ever flown, you'd have to really be like aiming for the people. Like you'd have to tilt that rotor while you're on the ground to like actually hit them. But I heard a story about might be kind of a downer for your podcast.
Oh, bring it.
About a guy that had got out of the helicopter with it. Some guys would get out of the helicopter with the blade still spinning, like it's turned off, and he picked his daughter up.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I don't even know if that's true, but that was what they told me at one of these flight seminar things I went to.
Wow.
So I think it's more of just let's be safe. You know, even the helicopters I was flying last, I don't think you could have got your head to them, but people still, really crouch down.
There's a great scene in Dawn of the Dead where a guy one of the zombies stands up and it chops the head of, it chops the top of his head off.
Yeah. And as far as the designing of it, there's so much into the engineering of helicopters that like moving anything an inch is like moving mountains. So
if you wanted to make those blades higher, the rotor higher, it would just be...
I mean, it would just, everything, the center of gravity would just get completely thrown off, so...
Well, now I know. At least I answered one question you weren't sure of, and then the other one that everybody asks. And,
Yep.
Yeah, they do. It does seem like you shut the engine off, and they're just going to come down like a rock. I think that's probably the biggest misconception people must have, huh?
Yeah, and I mean, I'd have people tell me factually all the time, like, well, that's why I don't like helicopters, because they just fall like a rock. And the Osprey, do you know that one?
I don't know that.
That's the twin tilt rotor.
Oh, okay, I've seen those, yeah.
Military one. That one can't auto-rotate through its own, whatever. Right. But it can run on one propeller, so... Basically every helicopter has to be able to auto-rotate, which is that term.
Can you do a loop?
I can't, but...
I mean, is it possible?
Yeah, there's a Red Bull pilot that does loops and barrel rolls and all kinds of stuff.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it was a hard pass for me.
Do you still get a chance to fly any, or do you just...
Nope.
Since you're not...
all done.
Yeah. You miss it?
Uh-uh.
Really?
No.
No,
this is it's just like, any job, like you do it enough. Like I have, thousands of hours of doing it, and it was, the camaraderie is fun. I kind of miss working around people because I'm such a, by myself all the time now. But I've seen not everything, but I've seen a lot,
right.
And so now being able to work for myself and do what I want is nothing like it.
What do you think that your woodworking is feeling more and more like a job, or do you still just enjoy the entire process?
No, I don't think it does feel more like a job. I kind of throttle my clients, whereas before it's, get as many orders as you can. And now it's kind of like, if I feel like taking this order, I will. Like I'm busy all the time.
Right.
So it doesn't, if I have 10 orders waiting for me or 2, it doesn't really matter. So it's more about finding, I think, the right client, the right project for me now, instead of just got to pay the bills,
right?
Because now it's more about the project than it is the money from the project.
That's a good place to be.
I'm very fortunate. I'm really happy with how things have shaped up, and I know it's not always going to be like this, but we'll see how that goes when it gets there.
Do you have any big plans for the channel and any big projects coming up other than what you just mentioned?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about the desk that went out today. It was a really, really cool piece of wood. It was a stash from the owner of Gobi Walnut. He'd like personally hoarded it, and his son, who manages it now, he's like, I'm sick of dad hiding and stashing this stuff up in my warehouse, and so he sold it to me, and it's really, really cool. It was like a gun stock maker, like had this like originally, and they bought it from him, but it's this really, really figured piece of Bastogne walnut. And there is some epoxy in it, but it's not an epoxy table. There's just like one crack that I filled. It's really just a really pretty table, and I got a first myrtle wood table. That video will be out in a few weeks. Most I've ever paid for wood, per board foot anyway. It was just obscenely priced, but the wood was just incredible.
Nice. Well, I think that even if the epoxy trend dies down, your channel is still going to do really well. Your woodworking, strict woodworking projects and videos do really well, and I think you've got a great way of presenting the information. Your voice is very soothing on the voiceovers. I think you need to.
I'm trying to be this because people tell me, so many people say they fall asleep to the videos, and those, as I'm sure you know, are your best viewers because they watch all the ads.
Right, they sit through the whole thing. You got great watch time, right?
Yeah. So I feel like anything jarring, I want to remove. So I do try to be, fairly calm, and every now and again I feel like I talk too fast or, get too excited and I have to slow myself down, but I try to be.
Yeah. Well, Cam, I want to thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure having you on the Woodworking Talk Show, and I hope you'll come back again sometime. We can do this again. We can talk more about some other. I'll try to come up with some. I'll try to come up with another helicopter question to stump you.
Well, let me know when I can. I'm not a good talk show host, but I want to be able to ask you some questions one of these days.
Oh, you got it anytime. They'll all be yes, no, yes, no.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you next time.